So the question is, what's your mindset? And how do you think beyond what you see? How do you think beyond what you're experiencing to get you to where you're supposed to be?
Welcome to the Break Free Podcast with your host, David Vancilla. Today we have with us a very special guest, David Cooks. Welcome to the show. How are you, brother?
Hey, I am doing great, David. I'm excited. I've been waiting for this day for a long time. So I'm excited to talk with you and with your listeners today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being with us. I know you're a busy person, being an executive coach, a best-selling author, and public speaker. It's an honor to have you with us. And on behalf of my audience and myself, thank you, because I know this conversation is going to be fantastic.
Absolutely.
David, tell me, where do you live and how do you spend most of your time?
Yeah, well, I live in Wisconsin, and I'm just outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I've been born and raised here, and I spend a lot of my time these days hosting a podcast and giving keynote speeches around the country. And I have a little bit of a story that I'll share with your audience so that they can give them context of who I am. Born and raised, as I said, here in Milwaukee, and at the age of 15 years old, I had a spinal aneurysm. I had a blood vessel erupt on my spinal cord, and I've been in a wheelchair a little over 40 years now. And through that journey, from paralysis to purpose is what I call it. I've learned a lot about perspective. I learned a lot about perseverance, and I've learned a lot about partnerships. And so I try to use my story as the platform to share with others, to encourage them to move forward from difficult places. And I've spent some time on the sidelines coaching basketball, something that has been a staple in my life since a child. And it didn't become paralyzed. My passion for the game didn't become paralyzed when I became paralyzed. I just had to find another way to get it done. And so that's kind of a short version of who I am and what I do. I've spent some time in business as a banker. I've spent some time in education, teaching economics, and obviously some time in athletics, coaching the game of basketball. So those are some of the highlights of my life. The highlight of my coaching career was spending 2 years at Duke University with who some think is the greatest coach of all time, Coach Mike Krzyzewski. And that experience taught me an awful lot about team building and teamwork and establishing culture and what it means to establish a winning culture and having standards and expectations. So I've been blessed, man, to do a lot of things and to thankfully impact a lot of people's lives in the midst of finding out what my purpose really is.
That's beautiful. And number one, thank you for picking yourself up after something so traumatic as losing your ability to walk and becoming somebody that is blessing the world in a massive way, the way you're doing it. So this is incredible. Tell me a little bit more about your injury. You were a normal kid. You were running around. You were playing basketball, I assume, because you love the game. And all of a sudden, boom, you lose your ability to walk. What went in that beautiful 15-year-old mind when you got hit? Because it feels like you got hit by a truck and you didn't even know it was coming, right?
Yeah, I literally didn't know it was coming. A week before, I had just gone to the doctor to get a physical because basketball tryouts were a week later. And I had gotten a clean bill of health. So there was nothing indicating that this could happen. It was October 19th, though, of 1979. I woke up with some back pain. I didn't think much of it. Went to school that day, played some basketball, but within 24 hours, I wasn't walking. And I began to, I didn't think much about it, to be honest with you. I was 15 years old and I had never been sick or anything. And so I'm thinking, well, this too will pass and things are going to be okay. And basketball tryouts in a few days, so I'm going to be okay. And when I really began to understand that I was going to be on a journey, I didn't know how long. I always believed and still do that I'll walk again. I didn't know when it was going to be, but that was always in my mind. But that's why I probably worked so hard at it. And so I was 15, and the question of why was not that important to me, because if it didn't change the circumstance, I really wasn't concerned with the why, but with the what's next. I wanted to know, what do we do from here? Where do we go from here? And as life changing as having a blood vessel erupt on your spinal cord is, what really changed my life was when I got to the rehabilitation center and I met my roommate. His name is Tony Otters. And Tony had less ability physically than I had, but his outlook was clearly greater than mine at the time. He was so positive and so enthusiastic about going home and becoming a doctor and all these types of things. And we were working together on a mat in rehab, learning how to get dressed and roll over and the things you have to learn how to do. And I watched Tony and I began to think about how much he would love to have the ability that I have. And it changed my perspective that moment. I began to understand that my situation wasn't as dire as I thought it was. And there were others who would love to be in the position I was in, even though it was a tough one. And that's when I understood about perspective. I understood then about embracing the possibilities of trying to find out, what is it that I can do? I can't focus on what I can't do right now. I need to focus on what's ahead and what I can do. And so that's when I first start to understand that embracing impossibilities is what makes a difference in your life, and to do the things that you can and do it to the best of your ability. Because at one point, what is possible was impossible. And I began to understand that. And also, if you take a look at the word impossibility, the first two letters are I am. So I am possible. I am able. So I began to focus on what was possible, and I am possibility. I am possible. And that really began to change the trajectory of my life from that point on. There were a lot of struggles, so don't get it twisted. I have walked and I have not walked, and walking is much better. So let's just put that out there so people understand that I'm not saying that this is an easy journey, but I've been graced to be able to make this journey look a little bit easier than it probably actually is. And but there are days and there are moments, when I don't feel like doing this, when I don't feel like getting in and out of the car or getting undressed and those types of things. But that really is what I was thinking at the time. Remember, I was 15 years old and I did not have enough experience in life to feel all of the bitterness that life can present you with over time. I was 15. I was starting to like girls and I was excited about life. And so I think some of that really helped with the process of dealing with such a tragic situation. And if I can for a moment, the title of my book is Getting Undressed: From Paralysis to Purpose. And getting undressed is something that we all do. We do it on a regular basis. And it really is about a rebranding. It's about starting over. It's about the old versus the new. The change of clothes doesn't necessarily change who you are, but it does indicate what a change in what you're about to do. And all of that was true for me at age 15. But more importantly, learning how to get dressed and undressed was about me regaining some of my independence. And it was about self-esteem and self-worth. And that process was a great process. It was a difficult process. But when you get to the other side of it, man, the things that you learn and the confidence that you have is unbelievable.
It's incredible that, if you look at the world, most people will have gone to even considering suicide with things far less than what's happened to you. So that's where I see the blessing. Did you ever encounter feelings of anger or frustration, especially at the beginning?
Anger was not a part of my expression or feelings. I will say that faith is an important part of my life. And as a young person at age 13, I had made a commitment to Christ and to follow him. And I remember saying this like it was yesterday. I didn't know all of what that meant, but God, I'm going to put my life in your hands, and wherever we go, I got to trust that you have me. When this happened, I was a little bit confused because I didn't think this was part of that kind of life. I thought, I give my life to God and make a commitment to him that, this was not part of it. Well, it became part of it.
Yeah.
And it really taught me and my family about what faith really is. Mm-hmm. Faith is not real until you become active in it. And I had to become active in my faith to believe that there was going to be some good in this and that I was going to be okay. Along the way, that frustrations are real. I'm human. I
Of
know that
course.
people look at the things that I've been able to accomplish, and sometimes they forget that I am human. And so I have moments of frustration when things don't go quite right. When things physically are a challenge, and when you're driving and your car stops in the middle of a highway, what do? Those things frustrate you because all of a sudden the reality of your limitations are right in your face.
Mhm.
And when they're right in your face, you have to deal with that frustration and deal with the fact that, you're not totally independent. And none of us really are.
No.
But
We think we are, but we're not.
yeah, we think we are, but we're really not. And so I think if we're honest, we all have frustrations, and I didn't know what would be the purpose of anger at that point. I mean, who would that serve? It wouldn't benefit me to be angry. It wouldn't benefit me at all. And the one thing that happened, and as I talked about it, when my perspective changed, I became grateful for what I could do. And you can't, anger and thankfulness can't coexist at the same time. You're going to be one or the other. And I became grateful just to be able to do what I could do, to be able to go back to school, to have friends at school that would help me get through my high school career, to be able to go back home to my family. All of those things became very important. All of a sudden, you begin to get clarity on what's really important, and you become thankful for those. And look, would I rather have spent the last 40 years walking? Absolutely. Yes. But we don't get to necessarily choose the path of life that we're going to be on, because if we did, I would not have chosen this. I would have asked for something else if I could have picked something. But what we do get to do is we can control how we respond to the demands that life puts on us. That's what we can control.
For sure.
And that's the one thing I've tried to do, is handle this in a way that I can stay positive, even in those down moments, not stay there, get there, but not stay there, and remain positive and look for ways to fulfill my purpose in life. Because when you start to fulfill purpose, it brings joy to you. It brings happiness to you. I mean, to get an email or to get a text message or a note from someone who heard you speak or who watched you live, and you didn't even know they were watching what you were doing, and they tell you how much you made a difference in their life, man, that's worth a lot. At least it is for me.
Of course, because it's part of your purpose, like exactly what you said. And don't get me wrong, when I meant about people, having suicidal thoughts with far less problems than the one you have, I also know that for the individual person, regardless of what the problem is, for them, it's a big deal. Right?
Absolutely. You are absolutely right.
So,
and that's a great point, David, that
right?
I never minimize what someone else is going through. And I don't try to measure it against what I've been through, because to them, it's just as real as being in a wheelchair. And that's why when we talk about going from paralysis to purpose, your paralysis doesn't have to be mine. It can be mental, it can be psychological, it can be a relationship, it can be physical. It's so many things. It's something that keeps you from being fully active. That's what I call paralysis, something that limits your ability. And whatever that is, it's very real to that person. I mean, it's real, like very, very real.
Yeah, it's so incredible. This conversation is just amazing. I've been researching for the last 7-8 years the whole topics of human emotion based on my own experience. And I have come to realize that the root of all low vibrating emotions, so I'm talking about anger, I'm talking about frustration, I'm talking about jealousy, greed, all the stuff that vibrates low. People know what I'm talking about. The source, the main root cause of that is fear. It's all fear. And it's a biological reaction. Our fear, the primary fear is survival. And when survival gets distorted into other things, because we don't really have to survive in the 21st century, at least not in North America, right?
That's right.
Most of the things are given to us, like stuff that we don't even take for, like we don't even realize that, we have rule of law. We can go out and nobody's going to kill us for the most part.
Right.
You can drive a highway and leave your car parked and it's going to be respected, right? You can have own property, and for the most part, you have certain standard of living that is guaranteed to you.
Yeah.
But then what we do is, our primal brains, our reptile brains, start having this transmutation of fear to something else. But the basic instinct is survival. How many people have killed themselves when they lose everything? Like the stock market crashes or there is a major recession, and billionaires kill themselves.
Right.
Because now they only have millions instead of billions. Imagine the distortion in their mind, and the secret is learn where these emotions come from, so you can allow them to pass through you, expressing them quick so they go instead of having them bottled up in your system.
Absolutely. Right? I think fear is a very interesting thing because, fear, I've heard it said that fear and faith both lead you to unknown places. It's depending on which way you go with that. And that fear of the unknown and not being able to survive. What a great point. I mean, when you feel that you won't survive and you feel you don't have a chance, that can lead to depression and distress and disappointment, and unfortunately for some, suicide. And I think that if we understand that, if we could just flip it and have faith instead of fear, believe instead of doubt, and you still will have some unknowns and some uncertainty, but you're heading down a path where you believe that it's going to be okay, that you believe you're going to survive, you believe that you will be sustained. Because I often think about it, that over my life, I've been sustained for the miraculous. Mm-hmm. I've been sustained to produce great things. And I am just so grateful to understand that as long as there is time left on the clock, you have the ability to impact the game in ways that you never thought. And you can still win that game. That's the great part about it. And you don't even know, I love basketball and sports in general. But, when the fourth quarter comes and all of a sudden you've got, in football, for example, you've got 2 minutes to go and your team has the ball and they're down and they're losing, they still have a chance to go all the way down there and win this game. Yeah. And it may not, I don't care how much they play poorly the entire other portion of the game. It doesn't matter then. All that matters is that you're still in a position to win. And I think that would help a lot of people to understand that you're still right there. It doesn't really matter what you did the last 3 quarters. It really doesn't. As long as you have the ball, you have a chance. As long as there's time, you can win. You can really win.
And talking about that, why is that? I truly believe that all we have is the present moments, the present moment awareness. Our brains tend to live in the future or in the past, and the past is gone and the future is not here yet. We actually get to create our own future by the actions we're taking right now. So you're right. It doesn't really matter what you did, by the way, good or bad.
That's right. Good or bad.
What matters is what you're going to do now.
That's right.
Then keeps going. And then what you did yesterday, it's gone already.
Yeah.
So it's just the present moment.
You have right now. I mean, that's all you have. I mean, and so you don't have anything other than now. You really don't. Mm-hmm. And that's why, it's interesting. I do live my life by moments. I really do. I try to maximize. I'm with you for however long I'm with you, and I'm going to be locked in with you right now to try to maximize this moment, because I can't be out of this moment anyway. And it's kind of like, why you can't do anything about what you can't do anything about. So why spend time on that? Yeah. It doesn't seem to make sense, right? Yeah. You just can't. So a rear view mirror is great for driving, but it's not good for living a life. I tell you that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And it's so fascinating what you just said, that fear and faith is exactly the same thing with inverse energy. Is That's all it is, because it requires the same amount of energy to be fearful than to be faithful.
Yes,
And it
absolutely.
works on every situation, in
Yes,
every situation, right?
yes. Every situation, everyone.
The thing is, fear is feeding the body, and faith is feeding the spirit.
Hmm.
And call it higher consciousness, call it awareness, call it whatever you want to call it. We have something intangible, our software, and we have something tangible, our hardware, which is our body, including our brain. But what goes on your brain, how your brain interprets your emotions, and the one that is aware that those emotions are happening, the one that is aware that the brain is thinking, the one that has the power to change the thinking brain. Because if you're aware that you're not thinking something right, then you get to instruct your brain to think something better. That awareness is the one that gets attracted by faith.
Wow. That's great. You're absolutely
Right?
right. So hardware, software. I'm like, yes, that's it. That's it. And you do want to live in the other realm of thought. You really do. Because you can't allow for the circumstances of life to dictate to you. You're supposed to dictate to them, because they're going to come. You're going to have adversity. You're going to have difficulty. It's a part of life. Everybody in the world will deal with adversity. So the question is, what's your mindset? And how do you think beyond what you see? How do you think beyond what you're experiencing to get you to where you're supposed to be? And how you talked about that is absolutely spot on. It's absolutely spot on.
Incredible, right? It's fascinating, and having such a great example as you, with all your physical limitations, living a beautiful, constant, happy life. It's just such an inspiration for everybody else, right? And I guess that's what you have done your whole life, inspired other people, right? What,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
How do you
absolutely.
how did you come about to getting inspired to write your book? And when did your book came out?
Yeah, I had it's interesting. It was 2016. It's almost 5 years ago now. I was sitting at the dinner table with my wife, and we were talking, and I said to her, I think my assignment is up at the high school. I had been there 17 years. I had taught economics. I had coached basketball for 14 years. And I just said, I think I'm supposed to move on. I didn't know exactly what I was supposed to do, but I knew that assignment was up. And she agreed and said, okay. So I was already halfway there. And so I did say, I think I'm supposed to speak, and think I'm supposed to write a book. And I didn't know exactly what the book was going to be about, but I really had begun to pursue the speaking thing. And I had just gotten booked by a speaking bureau, and I was on my way to Boston to do some speaking. And halfway through the flight, I began to have some breathing issues. And I got off that flight, and I told them, I said, look, I need to have an EMT there waiting for me, because I've got about 3 hours in between when I land and when I have to go speak. And this was like a really big deal. And so the EMT gets me to the emergency room, and I find out that I have submassive blood clots in my lungs.
Oh my God. You can
And
die from that.
yes, you can. Yes, you can. And so I thought I had a virus. And the doctor in ER said, well, you're not giving a speech today because we need to take care of this, so you won't be doing anything. So I was like, okay. So I missed that opportunity. I lost that contract. But while I was in the hospital, the doctors began to talk to me, because some of my former students who I didn't know were doctors at this hospital, and they heard that I was there, and they began to share my story with these doctors. And they kept asking me, like, do you have a book? I mean, we've heard about some of the things you've done. Where's your book? And my wife gets there, and we're in ICU, and I'm getting great care because there's no other hospital beds available. And they begin to ask her, like, has he written a book yet? And I'm like, okay, you know what? I got it. I think I'm on my road to purpose, but I'm out of order with it. I think I need to go home, cancel whatever I have speaking wise, and sit down and dedicate some time to writing this book. Mm-hmm. And that's what I ended up doing. I began to write the book with another former student who heard me speak somewhere here in Milwaukee. And I said, I need to write a book. And he said, I'd love to help you. And I said to him, I appreciate the help, but I don't have any money to pay you. This is a faith walk right now. And he said, don't worry about that. Because of the impact you've had on so many, I want to help you write this book. So we sat down and we were doing Zooms just before Zoom became popular. We would meet every week on Wednesday night for an hour and a half and go over what was written. And it took us about a year total to get it all done. And the inspiration, as I began to go back in time, as you can see in my office here, I've got a lot of music here. Mm-hmm. And I went back to my college days where I was a DJ and I had some vinyl records here and I began to play them. And as I played them, the stories began to come back that were significant for each of the different chapters that I had in the book. And I began to write stories and stories that about overcoming and about helping others and my journey. And before I knew it, we had 18 chapters in this book, and I thought we'd have 12. And I thought, I've never written a book. And to be honest with you, I don't like to read a whole lot. And I don't like to write a whole lot. But I've got a book now. And that was the inspiration was really for me to understand the order of the journey that I was on. I knew that at this point in my life, I was supposed to focus on impacting other people's lives in a different way. I had done it in the classroom. I had done it as a coach. I had done it as a business person. But now it was time to do it and leave something almost like a legacy of some sort for people in the world to know about. And that's what I did. And when I got on the other side of that assignment, the sense of satisfaction and accomplishment was like nothing I had never seen. I remember when I got that first copy in my hand and I was like, man, you have a book.
That's beautiful.
And
that's incredible.
Yeah. And that's how it worked. I mean, I need to begin another one now, I know, and to help people from paralysis to purpose and some of the keys and concepts that are going to be important to helping them with their own journeys and how they can get there. So that's how the book came about. The title, I said, is Getting Undressed. And that was a key moment for me in the rehab because they taught me how to get dressed. But I was in the room one night and they would always help me get in bed. But that night they couldn't. And I had to figure out how to get undressed. And I realized in order for me to go home, I had to learn how to get undressed. And that night, it took me some time. I tried to undo what I did to get dressed. That didn't work. And eventually I figured out how to get undressed. And from there, I accelerated my rehab, and the rest is kind of history at this point.
Exactly what you just said, right? The impossible becomes possible.
Absolutely. Because I didn't know how to do it. But, sometimes you just have to move forward, not knowing how, but you have to try something. And that's exactly what I did.
I call that the great unknown. And the thing is that going back to our reptile brains, because the whole purpose of our biology is to survive, all our emotions, especially the lower emotions, I wouldn't say all our emotions, all our lower emotions are based on survival, right?
Yes.
And because of that, we tend to forget that we came to this world to overcome. Everybody says, including me, I used to say, I just don't want to have any more problems. I don't want problems. Come on, give me a break. More problems. And my epiphany came about 5 years ago when I realized my biggest problem is that I think I'm not supposed to have problems.
That's right. What an epiphany, right? And not only, like you said, are you supposed to survive, you're supposed to overcome and thrive.
Exactly.
That's part of the process. The process is just not getting through it. That's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to overcome and thrive. And then we can reach back and show people how we did it. Because, I mean, and you know what? I the value, the substance of your life is really based on the things you've overcome and what you've been through. I mean, I love talking to people and hearing the things that they've overcome. That encourages me. That gets you hyped up and juiced up. Mm-hmm. And to know that that's how you're supposed to live, that you're supposed to live on top. You're supposed to live overcoming. You're supposed to live thriving. Right now, there's this new movement about having an abundant mindset. Absolutely. Have that mindset that there's enough blue sky for all the birds. Mm-hmm. There's enough pie for all of us to eat, and to have some to give and share to help others. Yes. When you get into that place, you don't even understand what lack is. You don't even think about going without. You're not, because you're always thinking, I'm going to have more than I need to give to someone else. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing how the universe will put it in your hand so that you can do that.
If you think about it, you're completely right. Like, we talk about the universe without realizing that we are part of the universe. They mm-hmm. said that we're made out of stardust, right? Like, yeah. The world is a spaceship that is, running around the sun while spinning it in its own, in its own center. And we are part of this world. And if you look at the universe, for all we know, it just keeps expanding and getting bigger and expanding and more. One sun dies, creates a supernova, and creates a whole new galaxy. Like, it's crazy, right?
Yes.
Like, think about the expansion of the universe and the abundance of the universe. Mm-hmm. So that what we have, going back to our primitive brain, is we have the illusion of separation, in which upon we believe in scarcity and lack. But it's just an illusion. The real truth is abundance. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're just starting to tap into it. I mean, you're starting to see now civilians going to take journeys into space and stuff like that.
What? Imagine.
You're like, what in the world? And so that we're starting to understand that there is so much more. There's so much more. And to begin to understand that it's okay to experience more and to be a part of that expansion. Boy, you talk about freeing your mind to start thinking outside the box. Man, this is a great time to be living. I know that we have tough times right now with COVID and all the different things that are going on. But boy, what a great time to be alive and to explore and to think differently, which is one of the things that I think COVID has taught us all to do, because it allows for us to have time to reflect.
Yeah.
To reflect and think about who we are and what we're doing. In my book, I talk about getting fired as the basketball coach at my alma mater, which was crazy. I didn't see it coming. Another thing I didn't see coming. But it allowed for me, it caused me to reflect, to regroup, and relaunch. And again, because there was still time on the clock, there was still gas in the tank. And when I did those things in that, it again changed my mindset. Who am I? Let me get myself together. And what do I have left to offer? And that changed my mindset again about life and about that there's more, that this was just, that was just an ending, and every ending is a beginning.
Yeah.
And I needed to find out, what was I beginning to get into now that season had ended. Was I going from winter to summer? Was I going from winter to spring? Where was I going? And that really does make a difference.
It's the ups and downs of life, right?
Yeah.
I've been fascinated lately with quantum physics, and the idea of quantum physics is that once you look inside an atom, and now we have technology to really look inside, and we realize that particles behave like waves. So matter particles behave like waves, and they were like astonished. And I'm talking about 50, 60 years ago when we were starting to measure this thing, so that they say now that we are actually 99% energy. Our matter, like our body or the stuff that we can touch, if you look really inside, it's a whole bunch of atoms put together by an energy field, and the electrons are not ordinarily spinning around the nucleus. It's actually completely random until you actually look at it. once you look where the electron is, the electron shows up. And that validates that the observer creates his own reality. And you know, that has been, like, for me, it explains the ups and downs in life. That's why I was talking about this quantum physics thing, because a wave, what is a wave? It's something that goes smooth, up and down, up and down. It always goes up and it always comes down. How's life, brother? Isn't life like that?
It's just like that. It's just like the stock market. It goes up and it comes down. It goes up and it comes down. And the people who are most successful they learn how to benefit when it's going down. They really prosper, not just when it's going up, but they know how to invest when it's going down. And that's the growth. That's where you grow as an individual, is when you're on that wave and it starts to go down and you're figuring out, okay, what am I learning right now? Where's the benefit in this? Because it's going to go back up. But when I go back up, I should be greater than when I started to go down. It should be greater.
Yeah. And that's it. We're just waves of energy.
Yes.
Try to find our purpose.
Yes.
And the purpose is to overcome and to thrive. You're right. If you only survive, you didn't learn your lesson. You have to thrive, which is above surviving, which is living in blissfulness, living in gratitude, living in us, feeling so abundantly blessed in your current life that you have so much more to give to others.
Yes, absolutely. You're right. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Like you said, I love how you said, if you just survived, you haven't really learned your lesson.
Exactly.
And that's amazing. That's a great statement, because that's not why you went through it. You did not go through it to survive. That's not the point. It is to live beyond that point so that you can be a blessing to someone else. Ultimately in life, I don't know what people's belief system is, but if you aren't blessing someone else, then you're missing your purpose. It's because it's got to be, because purpose is never just about you. It's always bigger than you. And that I believe that there are people who are assigned to you and your purpose, and they're waiting on you for you to bless them.
Yeah.
You may not know who they are yet, but I believe that they are assigned in this, and that they are for you specifically, because as an individual, you are individually equipped to fulfill your own purpose and no one else. You can't fulfill anyone else's, and no one else can fulfill yours. You are uniquely designed for your own individual purpose, which is an abundant purpose that will bless somebody else. And
it is that exactly that. It's just the world is a training ground. Have you ever thought about, what am I doing here? Why was I born? Like, really, like, why? What is this hustle? Trying to protect myself from the weather, feeding myself because I get hungry, and my stupid emotions, and trying to deal with people. What's the meaning? Why?
Absolutely. And I think that,
right?
I think everyone probably at some point in their life will ask that question. What's the purpose? Why am I here? And that's a why that you need to ask, because you'll get an answer on that one. Mm-hmm. Because oftentimes we ask why, and it's not the right why. We're not asking the right question, because why is the most asked and unanswered question in the world. Mm-hmm. But when we ask about our why being purpose, I believe we'll get an answer for that. Not why did this happen to me, and why am I going through this? You're not going to get an answer for that. Sorry.
And by the way, nobody will be able to answer that for you except your own heart.
That's right.
Right?
Absolutely.
Not even your brain, because if you ask your brain's going to tell you, I have no idea. But if you really meditate and put your hands in your heart and just ask your heart, why am I here? I believe everybody has a different reason.
Yes.
But I believe that's when you find your higher purpose. And as soon as you find your higher purpose, you start thriving, brother, and you start enjoying life, and you start falling in love with life.
Yes, you're absolutely right. You talk about your heart, and I often talk about your natural giftings. That's part of your heart. And a lot of your purpose will be tied to gifts that you have been given. You'll find that you'll find that there's a certain level of ease that goes with what you're doing when you're in your purpose. I love what I do. Speaking and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of like natural for me. I work on it and everything, but I absolutely love it. And it's a gift that I was given. I can't explain it all the time. I can't explain how I can speak in a room and people will be locked in listening to me. I can't explain that, but it's a gift that's part of the purpose that I have. And I think everyone needs to understand that. Sometimes we're looking for something that we don't have, and that's not our gift. Your gift and your purpose is going to be tied to what you do have, and it's going to be down inside there.
Beautiful. It's so amazing. How do you start your speaking career? Because a lot of people want to do that, but it's so difficult, especially when you don't know anything about it. Because you started speaking before the book, right?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. For me, as an educator and as a coach, I was always speaking. So whether it was in a game or in a classroom, it was something that I was doing over and over. And as a result, I didn't realize I was building a resume by doing that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that me talking to the kids in my class or telling stories to my team at halftime or during a practice was preparing me for what I do now. I had no idea, but it was just what I was doing. And isn't that interesting how you are doing what you just do and then you stumble into like your purpose? You're like, oh, wait a minute. That's part of my purpose. And so as a result of that, I began to understand a couple things. One, that people were watching me and I didn't know they were, and they were inspired by who I was. I didn't know that. And then secondly, as I began to have stories done about me, newspaper articles, school newspapers, whatever, I began to understand that there's a story that I need to tell. And I did not know as much as I know now that the most powerful thing we all have is our story. That's the most powerful thing we have to tell. And if we can tell our story in an authentic and in a real way, and not worry about the mistakes you make when you say it, not worry about embarrassing yourself, but just being real with people, that's how you launch a speaking business, by telling your story with authenticity and telling people who you really are and what it is that you really deal with. That's how you start. And then from there, you never know who's in the audience listening.
Right.
You never know where your connection is that's going to be your next breakthrough. That's why you do things with integrity. You do things with character. You do things with excellence, whatever it might be, because it's the right thing to do. You do the right thing because it's the right thing. And when you do that, you don't know the outcome. You don't know what the outcome will be, but you know it'll be a good one. You know it'll be a good one. So that's how I got started.
That is fantastic. Any advice that you can give to, especially young people that are finishing school, maybe are finishing university, and because of the virus, they couldn't even get their graduation ceremony done. It was just a list in a YouTube video. Yeah. What kind of advice can you give them? To start their life?
Right? Yeah, I would tell them to not predetermine the path that they're going to walk, to be open to the unknown, to be open to trying new things, to fail forward, that you're not going to always get it right, but try to get it right. But when you don't, get up and keep moving. I think that's the best thing that you can do. And to look for what's next. You live today, but you plant for the future. And you need to begin to plant seed now for the future, because your future is going to be different than ours. Your generation is going to be living in a different space than we are right now. And you need to begin to prepare yourself now for the future. And that's by studying, being observant, being open to growth. The greatest thing you can be is open to growing and be a lifelong learner. And growth can be uncomfortable. Let me just tell you right now, you need to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. If you don't, you won't grow to the degree that you should, because growth is born in being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the advice I would give. And the last thing I would say is this is one of my taglines, or whatever you want to call it, is that your ability to endure is always greater than your willingness to endure. And let me just unwrap that for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
What that means is that you have within you the ability to overcome and thrive more than you're willing to. And this is what I mean. None of us ask for adversity. None of us ask for difficulty. But I'm a big believer that if it's been placed on your path, that your ability to get through that thing is going to far outweigh your willingness to do it. So keep moving forward, because the human spirit is an amazing thing, and it allows for you to overcome things that you never, ever thought you would. Listen, if you told me 40 years ago that I'd have an MBA, that I would have coached at Duke University, that I would have represented the United States overseas, that I had a book, that I have a podcast, that I'm speaking, that I have a wife. If you would have told a 15-year-old kid that, I probably would have been like, I don't know if I can do all that. I don't know if I can do all that. And that's what I mean, that your ability kicks in. And once your ability kicks in, you're going to be good to go.
That's it. Is that unlimited energy that we have within us. But again, we're limited by our own limiting beliefs.
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. You know what stops you? Stopping does.
Yeah. That's it.
That's it. Not excuses, not other things. Stopping is what stops you. And if you will just keep going, we talked about perspective. Perseverance means you just keep going. You got to be like the Energizer Bunny. He just keeps going and going and going and going and going.
Yes.
And you know what? The other thing that's great about this, David, is that the partnership piece of it is that I love the fact that none of us have to make this journey by ourselves. That there's always somebody, there's always something or some opportunity that's there to help us move forward. And I am so glad that I didn't have to do this by myself. I'm glad I had my faith. I'm glad I had family. I'm glad I had friends. I'm glad I had mentors. I'm glad I had all of those things in my life to help me on this journey, because I just don't think I don't believe in being self-made. I believe in being help-made. And I love the fact that I got help. I got a lot of help along the way that I received. And that was big for me.
It's always a team effort. That is 100% for sure. I don't think there is a single person in this world that can make it without somebody else, directly or indirectly.
That's right. That's right. I don't know anybody. If they're honest, somebody gave them a chance, and everyone deserves an opportunity. Everyone does. And just that's why we're talking about the advice to give to young people. Take advantage of the opportunity that you're in. I said, too often we're looking for a different opportunity while we're in an opportunity that we're not taking advantage of. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden we've missed the opportunity that we're in, and the one that we're looking at is no longer there.
That has happened to me so many times.
Guilty as charged.
It's true. It's that mystery that the grass of the neighbor is always greener than your own. So you want his, and then you get his, and by getting his, you realize that your own was better.
Yeah,
but you cannot get it anymore.
and you know what? You got to cut the grass wherever you live. So if you think it's going to be different, you still got to work on that lawn too. So
it's true. It's true. If you had a billboard on the busiest highway on earth, what would you write in it?
I would write, embrace the possibilities. That's what I'd write on the billboard. Embrace possibilities, period.
Embrace possibilities. That's beautiful. Isn't that what life is about at the end of the day? Looking at the opportunities that come, regardless how dark the future looks.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's always opportunities.
Always, always. Always opportunities. There's always some there. I mean, you may have to look for them sometime. Okay. I mean, the old thing about opportunity comes knocking on your door. Well, I don't know about that. Sometimes it does, but sometimes you got to dig and look and search. And, there's the opportunity. Mm-hmm. Sometime it will knock on your door, but believe you me when I tell you, there's an opportunity waiting that has been tailor-made for you. That's the beauty of it, is that there's an opportunity that is specifically for you to become the best version of yourself. And, when you get to that one, we all talked about it. We may fool around with other things that we thought was it, but boy, when you get to that one and this was the one that was designed for me, man, the rest of that stuff.
And it's so funny because also about creating opportunity. It's all about the opportunity, because you could have the best training in the world, but if you don't have the opportunity, you cannot apply the training. And it's funny, I was away for about 4.5 months traveling in the South, and I did 5 conferences in 4 months. People thought I was crazy. I was probably crazy, but I did it, and I learned so much. And the one thing that I learned, I kind of knew that because, I have accomplished quite a few things in my life. I've been blessed to have a beautiful, prosperous life, and that comes from tapping into opportunities. But I got it really clear now how to manifest the opportunities. You're completely right. The opportunities doesn't show up. You have to do something. And you know what it is? You have to have a clear intention and an elevated emotion. That's what I figured. Clear intention and an elevated emotion, and then the opportunity will show, and then you can actually realize that the opportunity is there.
Wow.
And, and I'm going to close this beautiful podcast because I want to be, conscious of your time. I was looking for an email from one of my clients called Mark, because we had to do some business together. I needed to email him back. And I was having the sales meeting. This just happened 3 hours ago. I was having the sales meeting with my guys, and, we got to call Mark back to see if he wants to talk to us. And I Googled Mark in my mail system. Mm-hmm. And an email showed up from 2011. When I was asking, my wife and my grandma, they are my spiritual angels. I was asking them, to put my situation in prayer, because back then I was having a big problem and I needed their help. But all of a sudden in the email, this shows this crazy verse from the Bible. Is Mark 11:24. So I was looking for Mark, my client, and I got Mark 11:24. Talk about synchronicity, right? You know what it says? It says, therefore I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and then it will be yours.
That's right.
You have to believe that you already have it, and then it will be yours.
It will be yours. That's right.
I'm like, how compatible is that from the observer creates its own reality? Going back to quantum physics. Yes. It's incredible.
That is incredible. And how appropriate for our conversation today that you would get that email before we had a chance to talk today. That's
an email from 10 years ago.
Yes.
Yes. Right?
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I've enjoyed our time today. This has been fabulous. And again, I need to thank you, because this is an opportunity. And I never take these for granted. I never take an opportunity to share with someone, to be on a podcast and just say, it's another podcast. No, this is the most important thing I've done right now. Exactly. In these 45 minutes. Yes. And so I just want to make sure I thanked you for this opportunity, and hopefully, we will make a difference in at least one person's life today.
It's already done, because you made a difference in my life. So it's already, that one person is check.
There we go. Mission
No,
accomplished.
this is going to impact a whole bunch of people, brother. The stuff that you and I talked about, the clarities that we had, um, is beautiful because even since I met you, I never saw you for a second as a person with an impediment. I see you exactly the way I am. And
Right.
it's because your mentality and your life is exactly the way as mine, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, it makes
Right?
sense. Absolutely.
And you're such an inspiration for the world. Thank you for your life. Thank you for your time. David, if people want to find you online, where can they find you?
Well, I am all over social media. I'm on LinkedIn as David Cook Speaks MBA. And then I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and the handle is @DCE Speaks. Okay, so that's how you get a hold of me. And then thirdly, I do have a website, davidcookspeaks.com, and also have my paralysis, the number 2, purpose.com is our podcast website. So there's a lot of ways to get a hold of me. I love to come and share the stage with you, David, or whoever, and help to share this story literally around the world.
David, thank you so much, brother, for your time, for your wisdom. Please keep changing the world, keep living your purpose, because we have a lot to do to make this world a better place.
Absolutely. A lot more work to do.
Yes. Blessings, brother. Have a wonderful week.
Great. Thank you.
That's all for today's episode of the Break Free Podcast. Head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. Starting your own business can be tough, but it doesn't have to be. Visit davidmansilla.com to pick up a copy of the #1 international best-selling book, Breaking Out of Corporate Jail. Expand what you consider to be possible and reach your full potential. And join us on the next episode.